Okay, so this lesson will be fairly short. We'll just spend some time configuring our scene a bit so we can set us up for a smoother way of animating. We'll shift around the layout just a bit and just optimize our scene so we can view the animation in real time. So I'll just go into Cinema. And the first thing that I'm going to do is actually just make sure that our frame rate is set up at the frame rate that we want to be animating in. As I said in the previous lesson, I'm going to want to animate at a 12 frames per second frame rate, which means that I'll be getting this organic, choppy, stop motion-y kind of look. If you want to animate in another frame rate, like 24 or even 18, which is slightly smoother but still a bit choppy, you can do that. That means, though, that you're going to have a slightly different experience when you're animating. Since I will be placing out keyframes in 12 frames per second, I'm going to place them out at certain frame values, and your frame values might differ a bit. So just be aware of that, but that's absolutely fine. It might be a bit harder for you when you go ahead and spline the animations as well. But yeah, if you go ahead with that, I'd love to see your results. So I'll go ahead and in Cinema, press Control or Command D. And here under time, we'll see the FPS value here. So I want to set this at 12. Great. And after that, we'll hop into animation. And we'll make sure that our animation type here is set to step. And that just basically means that every single default keyframe that we're going to place will be in the stepped mode. And since we are going to be blocking as our first step, that makes sense. So we'll go ahead and set that to step like that. And one thing that I also like to do is just adding this HUD element. And you have the same thing here with the camera, just a bit of overlay that kind of give you some information within your viewfinder. And I just want something that's basically just displaying the frame rate that I'm playing at right now. So to do that, we'll just come up here to the top of our viewfinder, come up to View, and then hit Configure, or you can also hit Shift V. And in here, there is this tab called HUD. So we'll just naturally head into here. And we have a bunch of things here, but the only thing that I want to add is the frames per second, and that will pop up here at the bottom. And this will in real time display the frames per second that I'm going to get if I go ahead and play my animation. So if I just play this as we have it right now with every single element activated, this FPS value won't be getting too high, but I'll just go ahead and display it. So currently we are playing at like 2.5, 3 frames per second. And if we go ahead and animate and can only view the animation in 2.5 frames per second, we're not going to be able to judge whether our timing feels good or not, because as you'll be able to tell once we start animating, we're basically just going to be replaying our animation hundreds of times to feel things out, because you can't really go through your sequence, calculate it, and like place one keyframe here and one keyframe here and not view the entire thing. You're going to be playing it loads of times, feel things out, see what you like, see what you don't like, and so on. So we need to be able to view this at least 12 frames per second frame rate, preferably higher than that, just to make sure that we're not viewing it in a lower frame rate. So I just go ahead and scrub to the beginning of my timeline. And the next thing that we can do is go ahead and deactivate some heavy stuff in our objects panel. And I know what kind of things are heavy on my side. I know that the volume builders for the hair and the shoes are really heavy. I know that the cloth surface for our sleeves and stuff are a bit heavy. I know that subdivision surfaces are a bit heavy. So I'll just naturally go through and deactivate those things. And there's a pretty clever way of doing that by coming up here to our filter tab. So I'll just click this down and I'll hide this search bar here. Now, if you expand this object panel here, you can now go through your entire scene. So if I, for example, go ahead and scroll down, this is all in alphabetical order, come down to volume builder and double click that, I will automatically select every single volume builder within my scene. And to just quickly deactivate this, I can hop into basic here and just unclick enable like that. And if we just try and play our animation now, you'll see that it increases slightly. So we went from 2 to 7.5, so that did quite a lot. But we'll want to keep going. I'll actually deactivate my hair. I don't think it actually bogs down the frame rate, but it's just a bit obstructive if we want to see the silhouette of our character. And it actually did quite a bit. It increased it by like 2 frames per second. So we're getting closer. The next thing that I also know is very heavy are like displacers and stuff. So I'll go ahead and find the displacers. I know that we have one displacer being part of the animation of our poncho, but we don't need that specific motion right now anyway, so we can go ahead and deactivate it. So I'll just double click the displacers. I'll uncheck the enabled checkbox and we'll go ahead and play it now. I think we're going to get a much speedier. Yeah. So now we are actually viewing this thing in 12 frames per second. But just to kind of be sure that we are like above 12 at all times, I'll go ahead and deactivate some stuff that won't really be necessary for us anyways. So for example, I can go ahead and deactivate the cloth surface ones. And as you can tell, we have like this dash here. And this basically means that we have selected 4 objects currently, and 1 or more of them are actually having different results than the other. So I know, for example, that I did a copy of our poncho, which has the cloth surface deactivated. But I'll go ahead and deactivate these like that, and that will probably do a lot as well, I think. Not too much, but we'll deactivate some more stuff, and I think that will be it. I'll actually deactivate our subdivision surfaces because I know that they do quite a lot, so I'll deactivate those. And now we're getting something that's a bit more like it. So around 20, I'm gonna say that I'm happy. In this case, if you are animating in, for example, 24 frames per second, obviously you want it even more than that. Then maybe you can go ahead and deactivate the wind deformers. Instances also kind of clog up the system a bit. So yeah, just try a few things out. But with this, I'm happy. So I'll go ahead and pause our timeline. And with this, I'll just go ahead and hide our filters tab here. I can also kind of see now that our new objects, like our hair and our grass patches, aren't part of this layer that we created to hide all of the unnecessary elements. So we'll go ahead and select the grass patches, the poncho hair and everything. I just hold shift and click all of these. I'll right click and we'll hit select children, just so we make sure that we select all of these things inside of the nodes as well. I'll just drag them until you see this arrow pointing down at the layer, which means that we're adding them. And now if we go ahead and hide them, that works. Great. And I'll just go ahead and right click and hit unfold all, which means that we get to see all of our controllers and stuff that should be visible. And I can also see that obviously the lighting and stuff is also still there. So I'll just select all of these, drag them into the geometry layer like that. And now things should be looking all right. Great. So this lesson was a short one, but some really necessary stuff to do before we get into animating. So in the next lesson, we'll do our first step of the blocking, which should be really exciting. So yeah, I'll see you over there.